My favorite guest ever, not just because Howard Berg's a speed reader and smart, but because actually he's quite funny and very real. And if anyone could tell me the real deal on this healthcare stuff, it is my new Fox friend, Howard Berg. This man is capable of reading 30,000 words a minute. Now, just for comparison, the average person reads 200 words a minute. The average congressman, that last astute guest notwithstanding, about 20 words a minute. I'm kidding. Lighten up. It's cable, for God's sake. Anyway, I'm a speed reader, too. I bet you didn't know that. Did I ever tell you that I can read really fast? 29,500 words a minute. Well, give or take, 10,000 or so. So Howard slightly edges me. All right, Howard, bill reader extraordinaire. How does this thing stack up compared to that 1,500-page monster you read out of the Senate last week?
There's some significant changes, and some of the things I mentioned in the other show was there's a lot more information focusing on the abortion issue. The other bill basically
when you say the abortion issue, like coverage for those having abortions or what?
Right. In the other bill, it said that medical procedures for federally approved abortions was in there. In this one, there was about 12, 15, maybe more pages explaining under what conditions it wouldn't be allowed and what the exceptions were and why they would be. So there was a lot more thought given to it. I thought that was interesting. As I mentioned earlier, it's a lot like a Russian nesting doll. The bill is not, as big as it is, constantly makes references to other bills like tax laws, treaties, and other things that are massive that you would have to stop reading, find the other piece of legislation or law, integrate what you were looking at into that as an amendment or a change or an addendum, meaning you'd have to understand what was going on in both bills at the same time.
I have no idea.
I'm a fairly smart person.
Howard, stop. You're a genius. I'm not. But apparently what you're saying is this thing potentially is thicker and bigger than the 2,000 pages you were looking at when all is said and done, right?
Substantially bigger. I don't see how an average person without a background in law and tax law and in treaties could take that information, place it in another document, which they'd also have to understand, and then integrate all that information and have a outcome that made any sense to anyone. So
Howard, why are you looking at me when you say I don't see how an average person, and you just said, me. Well, I let that go. All right, so Howard, one thing that people don't know about you is you are a speed reader. I mean it when I say you're in the Guinness Book of Records as the world's fastest reader. You are. People who don't know you in the speed reading community, I kid people that I am a speed reader, but nothing like you. And you are our God. You are Yodas. You are what I call the Sultan of Sentences. And it's true. It's true. And a lot of people didn't believe me when I had you on last week that, A, you were actually reading the bill. They thought that you were reading a bunch of blank sheets of paper. I wouldn't do that to folks. You were actually reading a bill with words on it, a copy of the very bill I have here on my desk. So you read the whole thing. And you said something interesting in the 4 o'clock hour on Fox News Channel with me, that there's a lot of data and detail to this that, like you just said now, the novice would have to weigh very heavily. There's not this type of expertise on Capitol Hill. Maybe some of the congressmen have it, but certainly not all 435 of them. So what do you make of the likelihood of their, A, reading this like you did, and then if either they do, understanding it?
I would say unless they have an attorney present when they're reading, who can explain some of the legal issues and some of the other things that are integrated into this.
By the way, you said there was a lot of legalese in it, right? There's a lot of legalese in this, right?
If you're familiar with contracts, it would refer to like another treaty or a contract or a law and give you the name of the law and the date of the law and then the section of the law and the subsection and the subsection. And so you'd have to be able to take that piece, move it into the other piece, understand what the impact was of this new piece on the old piece, and continue going on. And this is happening over and over and over again. So unless somebody was a legal expert and knew tax law and treaties and was able to do all this at a very rapid pace, I could see where it would be very confusing to really understand it. on the higher level that you might need before you could pass it. So I would be concerned about that.
All right, a couple of very quick questions then to ask you. When we had you on earlier and we were showing, I don't know, Joanna or Tali, if we have the video of when he was reading this bill earlier. You were going through, but not nearly as quickly as you seemed to with the Senate bill last week. Now, a lot of people watch you wondering, your hand's going over the pages, there's no way in heck that you're reading it. How do you get it down so fast, and do numbers and charts or data slow you down?
That's a very good question. There's 4 kinds of reading. And to explain it clearly, the 2 kinds that we're looking at are inspectional reading and analytical reading. Inspectional reading is when you get the big picture, the main points. Analytical reading is when you pick up details. To put it in a simple context, if you told someone that a person with a clogged artery could have a catheter inserted and a balloon could expand the artery, that's inspectional understanding. Knowing how to do the surgery and successfully expanding the artery without killing someone, that's analytical reading. So there's a huge difference between getting the main ideas and understanding what it's trying to do and understanding the nuances of detail, which I, as a non-lawyer and as a non-expert on taxes...
Right, you look at the broad strokes, in other words.
Yeah.
But to show people at home who might have missed this, he was on with me, the 4, and Howard, very early on, before the CBO came out, was raising questions initially about some of the costs that he doubted, for those of you just tuning in, he doubted how some of this cost-wise would measure up. Lo and behold, about 40 minutes or so after we spoke with Howard as he was going through this, the CBO comes out and that says the costs are more like $1 trillion than the $900 billion, whatever it was, Howard, $894 billion. So obviously you know what you're doing. All right, so compared to the Senate version, and now we have the House version, they got to reconcile these differences. What do you think is the biggest difference between the two, the biggest problem they're going to have to reconcile?
I can't say there's one thing. With 1,500 pages, that's kind of oversimplistic. I saw a few things that I thought the abortion thing would be a sore point for some people. They introduced a whole new thing with a healthcare corps, which I thought was a good idea.
This is like for doctors and nurses to be part of like this central. Sounds like
the biggest thing I think is the impact on companies. There's going to be a lot of cost assumed by companies. The other bill had the small companies needing to do this when at $400,000. Payrolls of $400,000 and up would affect. This one, I believe, is $500,000. So that was a significant change from the other bill. I still believe that a lot of companies are going to look at the increased costs, and they may consider laying people off and lowering their payroll to go below the $500,000 mark, so they don't have to deal with this, because it's an administrative nightmare. I mean, the amount of paperwork that you're going to have to do, it may be a reason for people to consider downsizing or maybe splitting into more than one company to not have to deal with it. I would imagine some business people would look at it that way.
By the way, these are some of the warnings you had about the Senate bill, and that with the very issues that came up in the press a couple of days later. So, Howard, you're the real McCoy. You were a real friend staying through 2 shows with me to talk about this. Much appreciated. And we do worship you, by the way. I don't know how you do it, but we speed readers, I don't know if I told you I'm a speed reader. I didn't? Anyway, we admire you greatly and appreciate the time you took. Howard, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Great Halloween, okay?
Thank you for having me.
All right.
You too. Thanks again.